What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Rooted in Reptiles. Today we're going to be talking about blue-tongued skinks and pedigrees and why the two go hand in hand. You're watching Rooted in Reptiles, where you will find a ton of quality, evidence-based reptile keeping and captive breeding information. So first, let's cover what is a pedigree. A pedigree is basically a genetic lineage for an animal. It tells you the parents of the animal, it tells you the parents of those parents, it tells you the parents of those parents, and it gives you the ability to trace the animal's parentage the whole way back as far as possible. Now this can obviously vary, as some animals you might not know the lineage of. They might be wild caught, so your pedigree could simply say wild caught as far as the dam and sire go. Now, pedigrees are used in all kinds of animals. They're used in dogs and cats, farm animals like goats, cattle, horses, all kinds of things. Pedigrees are important because they show you kind of a proven track record of what that animal is. With the blue-tongued skinks, purity is one of the main concerns. You want to be able to prove as best as you possibly can that your animals are pure. And it's been made fairly difficult, honestly, because this wasn't necessarily, breeders wanted to be pure from the start, but they didn't necessarily keep records. It was a lot of breeders, they just bred northerns because they were so close to smuggled. Impure animals weren't necessarily a thing way back when this all kind of came to fruition as far as the blue-tongued skink community goes. Now, I would like to kind of change this up. I have worked very hard on my pedigrees. I have them for every skink that I own. Some are more complete than others. But as you can see, I have them for everything. Every animal here, except for one skink in quarantine that I don't know the lineage of. It appears to be a pure northern. There's no doubts in my mind looking at it that it is. But that animal, the person that I purchased it from, along with 3 others, wasn't sure on her lineage. The other 3 came from Ray, but he didn't have records for this animal. As far as my pedigrees go, I have, you can see behind me, all animals have cage cards now. I made these up myself. So this, at a glance, gives me the animal's ID number. I have used ID numbers from wherever I bought it. I've formulated one, like this is S for skinkoides.com or Austin Mullinex, or however you pronounce his last name. It's the order I bought the animal in from him, and then N for Northern, or IJ for IJ. My abbreviation for my animals that I've produced is RIR, Rooted in Reptiles, dash the number that it was produced in, dash IJ. It lists the birth dates, it lists what it is, it lists the direct parents, like this is Turner White to Turner Sunset. This is Classic IJ to Classic IJ. It lists the parents' IDs underneath the parents' kind of morph, and then it lists sex and who produced it on the bottom. So that gives me the ability to glance at cages and know who's in what tub. Now, these cage cards directly relate to what is in the pedigrees. So the animals in here, like, who do I have on top here? TBH for Thunder Bay Herps, 1 -N, that's Northern. So that is the first Northern that I bought. Her ID number directly relates to what's on this pedigree. And then I have her parents, her grandparents, her great-grandparents, her great-great-grandparents, and then her great-great-great-grandparents. So I have the animal and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations back listed on these pedigree sheets that I made up. That's really all that I could fit on here, honestly, without it being just stupidly cluttered. Now, what I can do is, like, if you look at an animal that I produced, like one of the rear ID animals, you can go back further. I have these animals back as far as I can get on one page, but if they were to go back further than, say, 5 generations, I can go to their parents, because I would have their parents' pedigrees, and then I can go back further and further and further, 1 generation each sheet that I go through. You know, it's not necessarily the best to say something that we're online, but I've heard horrible things about the online pedigree programs. So this is my best attempt thus far at pedigrees for my blue-tongued skinks. So how this works is I print off 2 copies of these pedigrees. 1 copy will always be with me, and it will always be with me, and that way I can match it up to an animal that I've sold. The second copy leaves with that animal along with its cage card. So whatever this is, I don't need to keep these. So these leave with any animal that sells. So then once I sell an animal, let's see if I can find the one that I sold. I think I have him in the back. Yes, okay. So here is a classic to this is a sibling to the one female that I have from Austin, the female that I bred on a breeding loan. So what happens is I handwrite the sold date, so it can't be copied. I handwrite who I sold it to, and if they have a business name, where in the country it went. So this one was sold to Ryan Kozo, and he lives in Illinois. And then I sign both copies. So both copies have this handwritten section in the bottom left corner. And that, if a pedigree doesn't have this on it, I consider a fake. If it's missing this part, I'm not going to confirm that I produced that animal, just because I have a feeling that it's going to get to the point somewhere down the road where people are copying these and claiming that breeders have sold animals if other breeders are falling in line, or they might say that I produced an animal and I really didn't, or they might say that I bought an animal. So this is an undeniable way to confirm that an animal has or has not come from me. Unfortunately, I can't print a picture on these pedigree sheets with that animal on it. That would be even better, but it's hard to do that, obviously. You know, it would be a lot to try and print photos of every animal on every page. But this is, pretty good so far, I think. And without this, his copy looks exactly the same. The handwriting is obviously the same because I did it. The signature is the same. So if someone were to send me a picture of that, and they could especially send me a picture of this corner and show that this sheet was complete and together, then I could confirm without a doubt that yes, I sold that animal to Ryan. And here's when I sold it, here's where I shipped it, and I could tell you exactly the lineage on that animal. Now, obviously without one of these pedigrees, then I can't do that. So this kind of gives me basically a library of every animal that's come through my doors, and every animal that I've bred, and every animal that I've sold. I have all of my babies that I've produced in here in the back, all the rear Northerns and all the rear IJs. So I'm pretty stinking happy with these so far. As far as I know, the only other person that is halfway working on pedigrees for blue-tongued skinks is TC. He is using, I believe, Excel to do his. I used Microsoft Word and had to format all this. which is kind of a pain, but his XL seems like it'll be okay. But I don't know that he's necessary. I don't know if he's done it with all his animals yet. Like, this is a complete binder of everything here. It's taken quite a few hours to do, but I'm happy to have it done, and it'll be much easier going forward now that I've kind of gotten up over that initial hill, that I can just coast downward with this binder. So that's something that I would like to see kind of rolled out across the blue-tongued skink community. I would like to see more people get even more serious about the pedigrees of their animals and about the purity of their animals. Hybrids are still being sold to this day, which sucks. It's horrible. This hobby has been built on integrity, or this niche of the hobby, the blue-tongued skink niche of this reptile hobby, has been built on integrity and on respecting your fellow breeders and just trying to be the best that you can be. So when I see people who go against that, it doesn't sit well with me at all, and I'm not afraid to call those people out on that. I want to see people push this hobby to be better than the rest. I hope that I can look forward to seeing some more breeders do what I'm doing here. I know it's a lot of work, trust me, I know it, especially if you have more animals than me. I have 36, or 35, sorry. No, 36. I do have 36 pedigrees in here that I had to do. And, I simply just formatted the initial sheet with the sires, dams, morphs, and my logo and stuff on them. And then I just basically plugged and played all the other information into it for each animal. It's not too bad for babies because you can just change the ID numbers if they came from the same parents in the same litter. You can just change the parent numbers, and that's one thing that I have on here. So on my pedigree, I have, aside from the dam, sires, and morphs, I have the species, I have their ID number, I have their birth date, I have the sex. If I know it at the point of printing this, babies, I'll probably handwrite the sex in. Morph, what would be considered the morph of the animal. I have litter count if I have that information, and I have who it's produced by. So there is a decent bit of information on these pedigree sheets. So hopefully, that'll help kind of push this hobby in an even further upward direction than what it's being pushed now. So I hope that everyone found this informative. I'm doing this for the betterment of the hobby again, and for the betterment of breeding these animals. I take it pretty seriously, honestly. I have a lot of money invested and a lot of time invested into these animals. And the last thing that I want to do is see the community that has cared for me and that I have cared for the past 4 years, heading in a downward direction. So this is one of my efforts to push back and push upwards. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope to see other breeders rolling this out as well. And I know that this year especially, there's been a big push for buying from good breeders who know their genetic information. When you buy an animal, you should be asking for the genetic lineage as far back as you can possibly get it. Those breeders should have records. If they're saying that they have good genetic information, but they just know where the two parent animals came from, that's not going to work. That doesn't work for me. I did the legwork. I've contacted the breeders. I've contacted the people beyond them if I can find them, if the breeders that I have bought from don't have that information. So, I'm really pushing for this, and it's been something that I've been talking about now for roughly 2 years, and I'm happy to see it come to fruition for my collection, and I hope to see it, expanding out from here. So with that, guys, have a great day, and just remember, stay rooted in reptiles.